The special board meeting of the governing board of the National School District will now come to order. Please stand and join me for the pledge. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I learned how to do this myself.
Thank you. The recording secretary will now take roll call.
Mrs. Zaraga,
Present.
Ms. Gay,
Present.
Ms. Sarmiento,
Present.
Ms. Betacor Castañeda,
Present.
Ms. Sala.
Present. Item 4 is public communications. Public communication provides the public with an opportunity to address the board regarding an item on the agenda or other topic. Anyone wishing to address the board shall submit a request for oral communications card. Cards are available near the entrance to the boardroom and are to be submitted to the recording secretary. A member of the public who wishes to address the board on any such matter is limited to 3 minutes for one matter, up to a maximum of 5 minutes for all matters. There shall be a limit of 20 minutes for any matter unless such time limit is waived by a majority vote of the board. Members of the public may not yield any time to other speakers. Members of the public may not yield any, no board action can be taken. Item 5, we will now conduct a public hearing to receive public testimony and input from the community on the National School District Educator Effectiveness Funds 2021 Block Grant Plan. Do we have any speakers? The board will now hear comments from any members of the public. As part of this hearing, we will make a brief statement. Mr. Albanese?
The Educator Effectiveness Block Grant is a new grant through the California Department of Education. It is a one-time grant for National School District. Our total allocation is $1.199 million. We are able to spend these funds for 5 fiscal years, including the current one. So from now until the year 2025-26 fiscal year, we're able to spend these funds. There's 10 different planned activities that we are allowed to spend funds on. And my colleague, Dr. Kraft, will tell the board what we will plan on spending these funds on. And this plan is an initial plan. So if down the line we decide we need to change it, we are able to change it. Dr. Kraft.
Dr. Kraft?
Thank you. As you can see in the plan, we have selected 2 areas to focus the grant funds on. Area 2 focuses on ensuring strong standards-aligned instruction. And what we have placed funds on, as you can see in each of the subsequent years, is funding to provide substitute release and any related costs to giving professional development for our teachers in 3 sets of state standards. The first will be the California Science Standards, the NGSS. We had hoped to do that, but it was disrupted with COVID, and so we will pick up that plan starting next year. Then following that will be the social science and history standards that recently came out about 2 or 3 years ago. And then we anticipate by the time we get to the 3rd that the health standards of California will be completed and approved. And so we will use the remaining funds in the last year to disseminate the health standards and training. Additionally, we put a portion of the funds in option 4 to work with our counselors and our psychologists to provide targeted social emotional training, especially with some of the high intense mental health issues that have been emerging as a result of the pandemic, and more focus on suicide prevention.
Do members of the board have any questions? Well, my concern was addressed by Mr. Albanese. I was, as I was reviewing, I was But my question was, would we be able to readjust the budget if anything else came up? Or if something was needed more than what was in here? You said that is possible.
Yes, this initial plan, so one of the rules of this grant was that we had to make this plan available before any action was taken on the same meeting. So that's the special board meeting to take action, and then action will be taken in the regular board meeting. But the initial plan that is presented tonight can absolutely be amended throughout the 5-year period.
Thank you. Ms. Gates?
I'm curious about the health standards. So at what is the, and, what is the plan to roll out from the state? I know that that's something that has been, like, there's been a lot of parent feedback with regards to that. And when we're talking about health standards, we all are talking about basic health, nutrition, things like that, but we are talking also about reproductive awareness. And that does affect our students as far as prayerfully not the reproductive part, but the awareness of their bodies and how their bodies grow and mature and change, and also safety. And so, I mean, this has been going on for quite a while, this discussion with regard to these standards. So my understanding was that the standards have been adopted and set already for the state. Is that true? That was what I thought I was told about 3 years ago. And that curriculum was being fleshed out for that. Where are they? Because you mentioned that would be our last year, which is the 25-26 year. So I'm just curious.
And perhaps I've read, but I will double check. But when I last checked on these standards, they were still in discussion, as you said, with input from the state board. There was discussion, and it did go back around some of the components that were in kindergarten, standards that were talked about different types of families, and so that arose awareness and input, and so there were adjustments being made. That was right before COVID. I have not seen a full release of them, but it could be that I might have missed it with all the COVID pieces. So I will double check, but it is my understanding that it was still being fleshed out. They had, at the point before we closed, they were still taking the input from the public and making adjustments. And that was one particular area that they were spending a lot of time discussing. So, but I will get back to you and I'll put it in the board memo.
Thank
Dr. Kraft?
you. I'm just, because what I understand is it usually takes about 3 years then for curriculum to be fully developed after standards have been adopted.
Correct.
So that's why we are looking at that last year for those particular ones.
Right, and we have seen a trend of that to allow some time and some space for the publishers. I mean, sometimes we have out the door publishers, and that the full transition of the new standards hasn't been reflected necessarily in the instruction or the activities. So we want to be prudent, and because as you know, the adoptions of materials are very expensive, and we like to provide the maximum for our teachers so that they have choice. And so that was another reason that we've kind of pushed that out to the latter part of this sequence. However, if things change, and it goes back to President Dalla's statement that we maybe want to make some changes in the plan, we of course would bring it to the board. The only criteria that I wanted to clarify is that it must still remain within the 10 categories that so to this date are allowable for these months.
Thank you. Ms. Risseler?
Thank you, President Dalla. Dr. Costa, do you mind? It took my attention that on plan activity, you put something in parentheses. You mind give me an, I don't know, really a little example what's going to be like, looking like that? And because it says particular focus on access strategies for English learning and inclusive practices.
Oh.
What is the plan on that? I know it sounds promising and exciting. I would like to see what is coming on the projected. If you can give me a quick example, I don't know what you got.
Yes, we are actually, I like to think of language instruction, ELD, as a ribbon that weaves itself throughout the content areas. And the current structure with the ELD standards is it's both designated, meaning we are actually teaching the language and integrated, which means we're actually providing you the language you need to access the content, the objectives and the content.
Okay.
And so with the particular, right now, we are actually working with our teachers and rolling out the protocol and the process in which you design integrated and designated ELD. That's our focus this year, and it's part of a big focus of our MTSS. So as we roll out each of these standards, we want to ensure that we're incorporating that ribbon of ELD and all the trainings that we've been doing throughout all of our content area trainings, so that we can ensure that our English learners continue to learn language, but also that they are growing in their content knowledge.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, I will close this hearing and adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Check.